Here we go. All right, so welcome everybody. Welcome back. We're continuing on with our elements, our Elements of Nature series. And last week we were talking about mud, that lovely connection of the water and the earth coming together. This week we'll go back to clear water. And yoga offers us the capacity to build our adaptability. It builds up our adaptability. And I really needed that today because today's just been one of those days where it's like, I'm a mom, I got to get this done. I'm a teacher, I got to get this done. I got, house things, all these different roles that I had to play. And I went to pick up my daughter from school and there was, train barrier was down, but there was no train. The train barrier was just down and we sat there and no train ever came. So then I turned around like, all right, we can adapt. We'll go a different way, get to a different way. We're sitting at the light, the light never changes. Like it never gave us the turn signal. So then, okay, we can go a different way. So I'm like changing lanes, making a U-turn, coming around. And then finally the light changes. And of course, finally we made it to school. And it was like, she's the last one there, like, what are you doing and all of that. But it was fine, but it required me to have that kind of fluid, moving, mobile mind, not just to sit there. Because the other option would be to be super rigid about it and get angry and just be really annoyed and super stressed. But with this more adaptable mental space, I didn't have to get angry about it. It was annoying, but it didn't cause like total trauma to the rest of my day, which without that adaptability quality, that could happen. Certainly happens for people that I know. So when I think of adaptability, it really does have a watery quality, right? It's that ability to move around obstacles, to change according to the circumstances. So if we think about water, if it's really cold outside, it'll turn to ice or snow. If it's moderate temperature, we've got rain and rivers and puddles. And if it's super hot, water starts to boil and even become steam. It's always changing and adapting its form based on the circumstances, but it never loses the component of being water. It's still water in any of those forms. And it's much the same for us. That's what yoga wants to teach us, right? That we can get in touch with that central essence of ourselves, that central like you-ness. In yoga, we'll call it the self with a capital S, or we'll call it the heart with a capital H. You can get in touch with that central point and identify with that, like remember that always. And if you're centered in that, then you have this great capacity to adapt in any of the roles that you need to play. If you're parenting, if you're teaching, if you're resting and relaxing, if you're working really hard, there's this ability to adapt and change and move without being thrown off by whatever the circumstances life brings you. It's because life doesn't always cooperate. There's a train with no train there. Like there's always things that get in the way. If life would just cooperate, it'd be easy to stay centered all the time, but it doesn't. And so the more we can connect with that central essence, the better, the easier it is for us to be adaptable. When we are adaptable, then we don't get blown off. Like we don't get so frustrated, so agitated, so irritated. It helps us then come back to who we are, come back to center, come back to connect with what's at the heart of us, which we would say is peace, freedom, love, and joy. Those are the deepest things we connect with when we connect into the heart. And that's why we do this practice, to connect with that. So we'll start with a good seat. And we'll be working again in the hips and thighs today, creating a little more adaptability in our seat. Sit up well. You can bring your hands to rest on your thighs. And you'll notice that when you do that, it helps to broaden your collarbones. So it makes more room for your breath. And close your eyes, turn your attention inwards. Most of the time we spend our days with our attention looking out into the world, out on what needs to be done. So when we pause, we turn inwards, there's a moment to connect with the deeper part of yourself. Feel the breath moving, a flowing quality. And the breath adapts too. If you're stressed, the breath will change. You relax, the breath expands. And then take a moment to connect with your intention for today. Join your palms, bring them up in front of your heart. We'll chant 3 rounds of Om. Soften first. And welcome your in-breath. Om. Om. Gently bow in, bring your head towards your heart. Release your hands back down to your thighs. You can lift your head and open your eyes again. Excellent. So we'll start again in hands and knees, and get your block. You can put it between your upper thighs like we did a couple of weeks ago with this. I'm going to just shut my door so I'll be out of the screen for 1 sec. Okay. So your block goes with the short end facing forward, and it's, long ways in between the thighs. Yep. And it's going to go up between your inner thighs, but you are on hands and knees. So block between the inner thighs right there. Hands down. Spread out your fingers. Good. And we're looking for, again, that flowing, moving quality in the pelvis today. So slightly squeeze your legs into your block. And then squeezing the blocks, spin the thighs back so much that it tips your sitting bones up towards the ceiling more. That'll create an arch in your low back. Then inhale, lift your heart forward and look up. Now scoop your tail towards your block, round through your spine like a wave, and ripple into a curled position looking into your heart. Exhale. Inhale, sweep the block back, arch your back. Well, allow the back to move towards the floor. Look up with your gaze. And exhale, scoop your tail and round through your spine. So go 1 or 2 more times, but really imagine that this whole movement starts with your breath and then with your thighs moving. And your spine gets to ripple, following the waving movement of the pelvis and the thighs. Let the breath flow evenly in and out as you come into more cohesion or integration with your body. After your next exhale, come into a neutral spine. Now imagine, or actually walk your knees back just a little bit, and you can keep your block there. And now imagine that there was a gigantic magnet behind you that was pulling on the block. So it starts pulling the block back. Use that to spin your thighs back, and again, create the little curve in your lower back where your sitting bones stick up more. And then lift your knees and go up to downward facing dog. But again, imagine that the block is being pulled back. So spin the inner thighs back and try spinning the block back. Start with your knees bent here. Keep the knees bent. That'll help you get more spin. As you do, send your sitting bones up towards the sky and keep the arms firm. So lots of adaptability in the spine. And then lower both knees all the way down to the mat. Inhale and look up, lift your heart. Exhale, scoop your tail down, really round your spine, make it very, very different shape, adaptability in the spine. And then come back to neutral. Send your hips back, shift your weight back into your feet, lift your knees and come again to downward facing dog with your knees bent. Squeeze into the block and roll both inner thighs back. It'll feel like you're really sending your buttocks up towards the ceiling, and that's good because it creates a curve in your lower back. And the lower back should curve in towards your belly. And then lower both knees again. Inhale, lift up and look up. Exhale, scoop your tail under, look in towards your heart, round in.
We'll do it one more time. Come to neutral spine, send your thighs back, and then like there's a big magnet, lift up, pull back. And again, you can keep your knees bent. Now with your knees bent, make your feet point straight back so your heels are not in or out. Then roll the thighs back, send your buttocks up. Now this time slowly stretch the legs a little straighter. Keep sending the buttocks up if it's possible. Maybe it is, maybe not, but do your best. Good, and then slowly, let's walk the feet to the hands if you can. You can bend your knees as much as you need to. And I know you got the block there, so it's kind of like a funky little waddle. That's okay. And when you get there, bend your knees a moment, put your fingertips on the floor, squeeze the block, and send the thighs back, rolling them back with adaptability. And then scoop your tail towards the block. You'll feel your belly engage. Push your down through your buttocks, through the back of your legs into your feet, and then slowly rise up. If you have the room, you can take your arms out to the sides. If not, hands to the hips, and then just bring your hands together in front of your heart. Good. All right, so take your block away. You can put it at the top if you use it for your sun salutation. So again, we're still working with the same rotation of the thighs that we've been working with. And the idea is that the thigh rolls, the front of the thigh rolls in. The back of the thigh lifts and rolls out. So the whole thigh is doing this internal rotation. So I'm going to stay up right up here where you can see my legs for a second. Take your hands and cross them at the wrists. Bring your feet about hip distance apart. And then bend your knees. And when you bend your knees, don't let them knock together. Then take your hands to the upper inner thighs. So the wrists are crossed, they go on the upper inner thighs, and you're gonna push the thighs back, so you're turning them back towards the back of the room. Yep, roll them back, and also slightly push out to the sides. It's hard to demonstrate over Zoom, but that's the idea. So the thighs are still rolling back. When you do that, if you keep your butt under you, it doesn't really work. So you gotta let your buns move back. There, it's like helps to free up your spine. There you go. Good, push the tops of the thighs wide, and they're rolling. It's not just a widening, it's a rolling widening. That's the feeling we wanna get. Now without the hands. So slowly bring your hands down to the floor or onto the blocks, and then see about stretching the legs as straight as they'll go. They may or may not go fully straight. But again, imagine that the legs are like logs being rolled down a river, and let the current roll them in towards the middle from the front and roll them out to the sides from the back. Inhale, stretch your heart halfway forward. Exhale and step your left leg back, come into a lunge. Take a deep breath in to open to a bigger energy, that connection with that essential part of yourself that doesn't change. Now, make your back leg really strong. Sometimes it'll collapse down. Make the back leg really strong. Bring your mind's eye to your inner left thigh. So that's the back leg, inner thigh. Lift that up and roll the inner thigh over towards the left. So the front of the thigh rolls in and forward, rolls around and in towards the middle. The back of the thigh rolls out. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, good. Then push down through both legs. And what you may feel is that this starts a hip opening process in the left side. When the hips are more open, we have more range of motion. We can do more. It's nice. Then bring the back knee down and step your right knee back to meet your left. Bring your forearms down, interlace your fingers, take a deep breath in, and then go back to forearm plank. Now hug the shins towards each other and see if you can roll your inner thighs up towards the ceiling. So the inseams of your pants roll up towards the ceiling, then hook your tail in and lift your low belly. Lower both of your knees and slowly ripple down through your spine to bring your belly to the floor. Let's take the hands behind the back Push your tops of your feet down. Now, before you lift up, again, try rolling the inner thighs up towards the ceiling. So the backs of the thighs roll out, the front of the thigh rolls in. You'll find that that makes more space in your pelvis, like around your sacrum. Then scoop your tail and lift in your belly a little. Now lift your shoulders and inhale, come up. And you may find a little bit more freedom in your back bend just by keeping the thighs in that rolled position. Exhale and lower down. Put your hands under your shoulders. Go back to downward facing dog. Imagine there were two strong strings on each inner thigh, one on each inner thigh, and they pull the inner thighs back and up towards the back of the room. Good. Then look forward and step your left foot forward between your hands into a lunge. Take a deep breath. So what often happens is the right leg sags down and the right hip drops down. So we resist that by lifting the top of the right thigh. Make the right thigh strong, and then bring your mind's eye to the right inseam, the right inner leg. Lift that up more and spin it over to the right. As it spins, resist the urge to twist your right hip to the floor. So it's really the leg turning in the hip socket like a key in a keyhole. Then push down through both feet and lengthen your spine. Even look a little bit forward. Good. Push off your back foot and step forward into standing forward bend, Uttanasana. Inhale, reach your heart halfway forward. Exhale, fold over. Take your arms wide and breathe in as you sweep them up to the sky. And then exhale, bring your palms together in front of your heart. Release your arms. Inhale, lift. Stay glued with your feet down as you exhale and fold, but roll the inner thighs wide and back and wide. Inhale your heart forward. Step your right leg back to a lunge. Exhale. Now lower your right knee, and if you want, you can put something under it. Bring both hands up to your left thigh. Take a deep breath. And again, bring your mind's eye right here to the right inner thigh. And sometimes that will be kind of a hard place to get to bring attention to. So if you need to, you can try touching it, and it's like, oh, there is muscle there. It just doesn't always turn on. So that's the place. So from that place, roll the right inner thigh over towards the right. So like rolls out that way. Then draw your tail down and lift up in the belly, lift up in the heart. And if you have your balance, you can take both arms up. If you don't, that's okay too. Arms parallel to each other. Now, keeping strong in this back inner thigh, see if you can lower your hips a little bit by pushing them forward. Yeah, good. Then lift up your heart a little bit more. Stretch all the way up through your arms, to your wrist, to your fingertips. We take all these different shapes in yoga. It's a way that we adapt to what life offers. Exhale, bring your hands down, but we stay who we are as well. Hands to the floor, and step your left knee back to meet your right. Come to forearm plank, elbows under the shoulders, shoulders over the elbows. When you're in forearm plank, if you can, try doing a little cough, like, and you'll feel your abdominals just really turn on. And that's what we want to turn on in forearm plank, those transverse abdominals. It's not easy though. Lower your knees, and again, come all the way down. Roll the tops of both inner thighs up. So there's a little hug in your lower leg. Inner thighs roll up. Draw your tail towards your heels, buttocks flesh towards your heels. Put your hands in line with the middle of your chest this time, and take your shoulders up. Inhale, lift your heart, curl up into little baby cobra. The more the legs are set,
the more freedom you'll have in the heart. Exhale, lower down. Curl your toes. Go again to downward facing dog. Take a deep breath in and press the tops of the inner thighs towards the back of the room and wide. So imagine they're like a whirlpool that widens at the top. At the top of the thighs, really wide. Then look forward and step your right foot forward between your hands into lunge. Good. Bring your back knee down onto the mat. You can always slide something underneath of it. And then bring your hands up to your front thigh. Soften so you can be more receptive. And then squeeze the muscles onto the bones to hold you there. And again, it's mind's eye now to your left inner thigh. So it may help just to touch the left inner thigh. And that can remind that inner thigh muscle that it should, help. It should be turned on here. Good. So keeping that, the left inner thigh moves back and moves out to the left. Roll the inner thigh back and wide. Then draw your tail down and your belly up. That lifts your right hip off your right leg a little bit. Then arms go up. If your balance is challenged, you don't have to use the arms. You can keep them on your front thigh. But if you're feeling pretty stable, now you can lunge into the front leg a little bit more. And that may open up some stretch on the back leg. May challenge your right glute. That's all good. It's all fine. Push down into the legs to lift up through your heart. Hollow your armpits. Take your head up and reach all the way up through your fingertips. And then exhale and bring your hands all the way down to the mat. Lift your back knee and step forward into standing forward bend. Notice if your knees are knocking in towards each other. Keep the knees out as wide as the ankles. Inhale and reach your heart forward. Exhale and fold. Take your arms wide and come all the way up, inhaling. And then join the palms in front of your heart. Exhale. Release your arms by your sides. All right, so we have a couple of standing poses so that we can play with this adaptability in the legs and pelvis, getting some fluid motion. What you'll need to start is to bring your 2 blocks in front of your mat, and we'll take a nice wide stance. So we're going to face the long edge. Actually, we're not going to take a wide stance to start. I'm going to take a medium wide stance. So here's my Tadasana stance. And then my wide stance is pretty wide. You want to be in between those two. So it's a little bit wider than my hips. Let's slide these out so you can see. Okay. Point 10 toes straight ahead. And now remember what we did earlier with the wrists crossed and the hands spinning the thighs. We want that idea, but now we're not going to use our hands. You can bring your hands to your hips, squeeze the leg muscles, and then bend your knees. Almost like this is like sometimes called horse stance. And I can see that. My daughter's been horseback riding, so this looks like how she might look on a horse. And now you're going to lean forward and put your elbows on your thighs. And if your stance is too wide, just bring it in narrower. Good. Imagine your feet were magnetically attracted to each other. Pull them in. But then roll your inner thighs back so that your low back arches and your buttocks move back. Good. As you do that, now push your forearms on your thigh and lift your heart forward. So it's almost like a ski jumper type pose. Instead of being rounded in, create a lot of length through the spine. Yeah, good. And then pushing the legs down, inhale and stretch back up. That's good work. So we're going to take that idea into our next pose. This time, step the feet out a little wider, and you may want your blocks in front of you. So it's like a wider version of what we just did. Take a deep breath in, and then exhale, bend the knees. Now you'll notice they don't have as much room because, you're out wide, and they'll try to knock in. So do your best to put your outer foot on the floor so the knees can stay pointing out. Now, lean a little forward. You might use your hands on your legs this time instead of your forearms, or you can have your forearms if that feels available. And again, squeeze the feet towards each other.
And roll the inner thighs back. Stretch your heart forward. Their tendency is just to collapse everything. See if you can stretch your heart forward. Now reach your hands down either for the floor or for the blocks. Yeah, so the knees are bent. Good, good. Now we're going to slowly stretch the legs by bowing forward and taking the thighs even wider. Slowly take the tops of the thighs even wider, push them back and straighten the legs. And then we're in Prasarita Padottanasana. We've done this pose many times. Just a different way to get there. So we adapt. When we find new ways, helps us work with, not staying stuck and always doing something exactly the same way. Keep sweeping the feet in, but take the tops of the thighs, push them out wide. And then slightly lift your low belly. Good. Take your hands back to the floor, stretch your spine, bend your knees again. And again, as the knees bend, push them out to the sides. So the outer foot is on the mat. Take your hands to your hips. Inhale, lift your torso up, and then stretch both legs. Nice, walk your feet back in towards each other. Whew. And you may already be able to feel that just like habits and patterns in the body start to clear up, and we can get the bones into a good relationship with each other. So I'm going to show you the next one first because it's a little bit complicated. It's not super crazy, but you're going to have your blocks up near your front foot, which I guess is going to be this foot for me. We've done Warrior 2 plenty of times. So here's Warrior 2, right? We're going to be here, and then we're going to lean forward onto the blocks, or you can use a chair, or you can use the floor. So any of those. And we're going to do the same work we've been doing, squeezing the legs, sending the thighs back. And the last piece, which you won't be able to see very well, is scooping this hip under. But the idea is that actually the torso comes out. So in the deepest sense, it's way out here, like a down dog in the pose. But you can be on blocks, you can be on a chair. All right, so let's take the legs out wide. You're going to take your blocks over by the right side of your mat, the right end of your mat, by the right foot end of your mat. That's what I'm trying to say. Feet nice and wide. Take a wide stance. Now, turn your left toes in towards your belly a little. Turn your right leg all the way out towards the short edge of your mat. And then you take a deep breath. With the legs really strong now, bend your right knee out over your right ankle. So we've done this many, many times. There we go. And just watch the right knee. Don't let it fall in towards the big toe. Keep it out. And to help that, you squeeze the right butt. Now, your hands are going to come to the blocks or to the floor or to a chair if you need more height. Yeah, and you can bring the blocks right under your shoulders. Yeah, if you easily reach the floor or you have more stretch, then you just take the arms out a little further away from you. Okay, good. Everybody squeeze your legs really strong. And now see if you can send both thighs back a little bit so your butt actually leans back. Keeping the thighs back, scoop your tail under and lift your belly up off your right thigh so your right leg turns out more. Good, and then if it's available, keep your right knee pointing out to the right. If it's available, then you bow over a little more, let your head come down. Maybe walk the hands away from your legs a little bit or a lot. It's tricky. Good, push into the legs really strong, right knee out to the right. And then walk your hands back if they're walked away from you. Push down into your legs, hands on your hips, and inhale to come up. That is a serious hip opener, no messing around. Turn your right toes in and take your block over to the left foot side of your mat. Turn your left leg out from the hip. Turn your right toes in a little bit. Take a breath. And then with the leg muscles firm, bend the knee. You can float your arms up parallel to the floor. So left knee bent, left shin straight up from the floor. Good. Make sure your left knee is going back towards the left second and third toe.
Now your legs stay really stable as you bring your hands onto the blocks. Yeah, I've heard this call, I like to call this bowing warrior. Scissor your legs towards each other, so squeeze them. And then roll the inner thighs back and actually shift your pelvis back a little, like it's gonna swing off the back side of your mat. Draw your your left sitting bone down and squeeze your left outer hip. And that takes your left knee out to the left more. Good. And then if it's available, walk your hands out, lean over more. If it's not, no problem. You just stay right where you are. And it's actually really advanced to stay exactly where you need to be, not to go further. You want to adapt. I offer these shapes, but you adapt. You see what you can do. Work within it. Then walk your hands back. Squeeze your legs strong, hands to your hips. Lift your torso and slowly come up. Whoo, turn your right leg in. Sorry, your left leg in, and step your feet back together. I keep doing that. Whoo, do you feel that in your hips and your pelvis working? Core? Yes, good. Excellent. So one more standing pose like this. We're going to take the blocks to, again, the right foot side. And you can use one blocks. We're going to triangle pose. You can use your blocks stacked. I think, Mark, that usually works for you. Or no blocks, or one block, however you need. Okay. Then take a wide stance. Hands to your hips. And roll the left inner leg in, left toes in towards the belly a little. Roll the right leg all the way out to face the short edge of the mat, and take a breath. That breath is to open to a bigger energy, that we're not just caught up in the mind, right? To connect with everything in the body. Squeeze the leg muscles. This time your right leg stays straight. So reach your right arm out, tip your torso over, and bring your right fingertips onto the block or onto the floor. And the block can be behind your right shin. It doesn't need to be up by your foot. It can be back by your shin. Excellent. Squeeze your leg muscles. Again, remember that rolling quality of the legs. So with adaptability, roll particularly your left thigh in and back. Roll your right leg out, so your right kneecap points toward your right toes. Then lengthen your torso alongside your leg. So it's like lengthened out, and slowly spin. Start low. Start your belly spinning towards the sky. Spin your ribs towards the sky. Take your shoulders back and take the left arm to the sky if it's available to you. If that's too much, don't worry about it. Excellent. From deep inside now, push down into the legs. And notice how that gives you some more strength to expand. Feel the movement of your breath, and the aliveness in your body. Good. Bring your top hand to your hip. Push down into the legs and inhale to come up. Switch the block to the other side. Or blocks. Switch the legs as well. So turn your your right toes in a little. Turn your left leg all the way out. And squeeze the left leg muscles to keep them firm. Back hand on your hip, reach out with your left arm, lean your torso out and over, and then bring your hand onto the block or onto the floor. Good. Another time from the floor, squeeze up. So remember the support of the earth that we pulled on a few weeks ago. Pull up into your core with that. Now bring your awareness, particularly your back leg. So the front of the right thigh rolls forward a little, rolls in. Take the inner right thigh back and wide. And then hook your left seat under to turn your left leg out. So your left kneecap points in the same direction as your left toes. Line up your torso over your left leg. And then spin your belly towards the sky. Spin your ribs towards the sky and heart, shoulders back. Take your hand up, your right hand if it's available. It doesn't hurt your shoulder. And from deep inside, like being able to reach from your deep core essence now,
Push down through both feet into the floor and expand yourself. Let your heart radiate outwards. Bring your top hand back to your hip. Look down at your left leg. Make it firm. Inhale and come back up. Excellent. Turn your left toes forward and heel toe your feet back together. Step them back in. Yeah. So when I start to see the hips moving, I know we're in good shape. Things are starting to open. Okay, so now step towards the top of your mat. Again, if you use blocks for your standing forward bend, bring them with you. If you don't worry about it. Bring your feet to the parallel position at the top of the mat. And then bend your knees a little and just send the inner thighs back, create the little arch in the low back so the low back has curve. Keeping that, come down to fingertips or to blocks on the floor, or fingertips on the floor or fingertips on the block. So this is the position, knees bent, butt back, low back arch, stretch your heart forward. From that position, slide your hands back a little closer to your feet if it's available, or even hold your ankles, and then slowly stretch your legs straighter and bow over the legs. Key here is not to overdo your hamstrings, so keep your buttocks flush, sliding towards the mat. So even though the sitting bones are trying to go up, the buttocks flush draws down. If your hands are on your ankles or on the floor, see if you can take your elbows out to the sides, and the elbows act like windows for the spine to fold through. Come back to your fingertips on the blocks or on the floor. Inhale, reach forward. And then bend your knees. You're going to come down to seated. So however makes sense to you. You can just bend and set your butt down if you want, or you can go hands and knees and then come down. Excellent. Have your strap close by. We'll need it in just a second, but this way you won't have to go looking for it. All right, so sitting up on your buttocks or on your sit bones, take your hands to the front of your shins, right above your knees, bend your knees. Point your feet straight ahead and do your best not to let the knees knock in or out. And then again, stick the butt back so the low back goes in and up. So sitting up really tall. Now walk up to your tiptoes. And when you do, you'll tip back on your sitting bones a little bit more. Yeah. And then maybe hover the feet. And as the feet hover up, you can take your hands behind your thighs instead of in front of the shins. Front of the shins is really hard here. Yeah. Good. So Navasana, boat pose, able to float on the water and either stay there or with the legs strong, take your arms forward and balance here, giving a little more support to the, a little more request for action from the core, right? When we get into fire next week, we'll really come to the core more. Good. And then release your hands to behind your legs and come all the way down on your back and get your strap. Here's my strap. Okay. Draw your right knee in. And then take the strap behind your, take the strap to the ball of your right foot and take your right leg up into the air in the strap. When you first do this, you may notice that your low back has gotten crunched onto the floor. So send the inner thighs towards the mat as best you can. Let your low back now arch up off the floor. For me, that lowered my right leg. That's okay. You may want to keep your left knee bent. That will help keep your low back off the floor. But if you're feeling pretty open today, stretch your left leg and see if you can bring it down to the mat. And that will be just a little bit different, a little more grounded. Feel the texture of your breath. Firm your leg muscles. So the right kneecap is not just sort of floating in jelly. It's supported by the leg muscles pulling, like hugging around it. Now, take the strap just in your right hand. You're going to turn the right leg, the whole leg from the hip out. So the right toes point out towards the right on a little bit of a diagonal. I'm going to hit the wall if I do this. And then slowly, slowly open the right leg out to the right. And you just want to go to the place where you're not going to fall over, where your leg doesn't pull you over. If you think about this shape, it's actually really similar to triangle pose. Think about where the legs are. So similar position. Your right leg does not need to hit the floor by any means. And now here, even here, see, hug your left foot towards the middle a little. It doesn't move necessarily, but that will help turn your left inner leg on. So the left inner leg, the one that's down, and then roll both inner thighs towards the floor if you can. And that may be just in your mind, or it may be a little bit of movement. So even here, the inner leg is turned on and adaptably ready to move and turn. All right, inhale, bring your right leg back up and remove it from the strap. And then put both legs long just for a moment and feel. See if you notice any difference between the two sides. Then bend both knees, feet to the mat once more. Bring your left leg in towards your chest a bit. And then left foot into the strap and slowly stretch your left leg to straight. Left ball of the foot reaches into the strap, but really stretch your left heel up. Now, arch your low back. So you send the front of the pelvis forward even more so that the sacrum can come off the floor. Squeeze the leg muscles around the bones of your left leg and straighten your right leg if you wish, or keep it bent. And breathe. Our breath is one of our great adaptations. It breathes us all the time, and we can control it if we pay attention to it. But you'll notice when you're stressed, your breath changes. When you're relaxed, it expands and gets deeper. Really helpful. All right, so now take the strap just in your left hand. Turn your left leg out from the hip. So think of it coming from the hip, and then the toes just follow. You can feel the muscles around the hip that make that happen. And then slowly open the left leg out to the left. And again, you're only going as far as you can go without rolling your whole body over to the left. And of course, without overstraining. If you hit the wall, if you hit furniture, it's actually kind of nice. You can use that to anchor. But if you don't want that, if you want to be building some strength, just move a little bit away from it. Hug your right foot towards the middle, and you'll feel your right inner leg turn on, that same muscle we've been talking about this whole time. Roll both inner legs towards the mat, even the left one a little bit. So the left leg's turned out, but the inner leg is still trying to roll towards the mat a little bit. That might be a lot for your body to think of. That's fine. Just straighten the legs. Slowly bring your left leg back up towards the sky. And then release it from the strap as well. Put your left leg down on the floor. Feel both legs. By working with, alignment, we can get the body back into its natural form or closer to it. Can let go of the habits that aren't serving us as well. And that actually gives us more natural adaptability, more ability to respond physically to whatever may come up. So bend your knees now and roll over to your right side to come back up to sitting. You can get a block and get your blanket or lots of blankets and or cushion, whatever it is to sit on when we come to sitting. We're going to be taking the legs out wide, so if you want to sit facing the long edge of the mat, or if you want to stagger if you're with someone, you can do that. Okay.
Whoa, super dust bunny. All right, so you're gonna sit up on your blanket or your extra blankets, and then your block is close by. Yeah, okay. So we're gonna use the block just as a little bit of a gauge. So the block has 90-degree angles, and that's what we're gonna be going for with the legs here. So you can take your legs straight and out to the sides, but we're not going for legs like 180 degrees out to the sides like where a protractor would be. At the, we're going for 90 degrees or a little bit more. So you have your block, you can bring it in, and actually, if I'm at 90 degrees, it's not much. It's only about here. So it doesn't have to be super wide. So the block is just there, or the corner of a pillow or something, just to give you like, what is a 90-degree angle anyway? Then you can set the block out to the side, out of your way. All right, so there's your angle. Push your heels down and roll both inner thighs towards the mat. So you're going to use your hands again. Roll the right inner thigh down, push it out wide, and then go to the outside and pull it out to the right. Same thing on the left. You roll it down towards the middle, push it underneath, go to the outside and pull it out to the left. You get this like greater sense of grounding, and the thigh is turning now. Now bring your hands to the floor alongside your body. Heels push down. And use your leg muscles to turn the inner thighs towards the floor. So I'm not going to turn my whole leg so that my foot turns, but the muscles turn down. When you do that, move your low back in and up. You'll notice that you can now sit up taller. Good work, everybody. So that's the position we're going for. Low back in and up, inner thighs rolling down. Take a deep breath. Good. Now you can relax for just a second and kind of let that go. And I'll show you how we'll do the next one. We've been doing it through the whole class, but so same idea. We start here, you're seated here, and this might be the work. If your low back is not already in and up, then this is all you do, and you just sit here and you wait for, I don't know, however long it's going to take, however many lifetimes for your legs to start to open. But if you have the low back in and up, then you're going to walk your hands a little forward, little bit of bend of your knees. So it's probably hard to see, but my knees are off the floor. My heels can come in, and I'm going to push my buttocks back even more. And then to bow, as I straighten my legs, I'm going to walk my hands forward. So that bend of the knees helps me sort of settle the thighs back and gets my ribs a little further forward. And then when I straighten, I can come out more. So a forward fold, we'll go together again, but a forward fold like this has a lot of range of expression. So yours will not look like anyone else's. And that's a really beautiful thing. We want to be able to adapt to what the body actually needs. So let's try this all together. Again, you start with sitting up tall, roll the inner thighs towards the mat, and fingertips are on the floor. Yeah, so the first thing is your low back in and up? Yeah, and are your thighs able to press down? Yeah, so that could be it. And that's great work. Lift your belly, you're sitting up tall. If you're wanting to see about going a little bit further, the first thing we'll do actually is just bend the knees. And I took my hands a little further out to the side, bending the knees, let the knees come up towards the ceiling. So my feet came back, my knees went up. Yep, then the hands go on the inside. You can walk a little forward with the knees bent. Roll the inner thighs in, and as you bow, stretch the legs. Think of the inner thighs rolling down towards the floor and back behind you. So you may get a little bit more length. Again, keep rolling the inner thighs in. Now, everyone, lift your ribs off your hips on the whatever angle you're on. Lengthen your ribs away from your hips. Upavishta Konasana, wide angle pose.
And then inhale and slowly come back up. Good. Maybe that was a little different than you've done it before. Let's come to cross-legged. Take your right shin in front of your left and sit up tall. Yes. Maybe the knees go out a little differently than they did sometime before, maybe not. Okay, take your left arm up, inhale. Left hand to your right knee, take your right hand behind and slowly twist to the right. Try not to move your lower back, just do it through the midsection of your spine and up above. And turn your gaze, look over your right shoulder. Widen the elbows a little. That'll help you stay tall. And breathe. You want to be able to encounter the twists and turns of life without getting stuck, without getting dug in, or getting angry, resentful. And so we practice adaptability in our postures so that we can be adaptable out off the mat. Inhale and come back to the front and switch the cross of the legs. Left shin in front, right shin behind. Again, low back in and up. Inhale your right arm up. And then take your right hand to your left knee. Take your left hand behind, sit up tall, twist. So the low spine stays. Just spin through the rib cage and upwards. Widen your elbows a little. Hug your left shoulder blade onto your back. Your right shoulder can go a little wider. Look over the right shoulder. Over the left shoulder. Let the twist help you unwind any tension, any aggravation, any way that you were not adaptable to what life brought you today or in this last week. When we release layers of tension, our body gets to relax, we feel less stressed. Body has regained some natural health. Inhale and slowly come back to the front. And now you can come slowly onto your back. Come off of your blanket. Come down on your back. Let's finish with a twist on the back. So bring the knees up in towards the sky, hug them together. Take your arms out wide like a T. And then take both knees over to the right. They can come all the way to the floor, feet all the way to the floor. Stack your left leg all the way over your right leg. Turn your gaze back towards the left, And even here, send the thighs in towards the middle. Send the buttocks back, low back in and up. Soften the breath. Let your eyes be soft in their sockets. Very gently hover the legs up into the middle and go in the opposite direction. Both legs over towards the left, and they can come a little up towards the left elbow. Bring your right knee over top of the left, but then roll the inner thighs towards the front of the mat. Arch your low back. And turn your gaze over towards the right. Allow your right shoulder to nestle towards the floor. Even though it's a twisted position, see how much you can let your breath move with complete freedom. Not holding the breath, not forcing the breath either. And then inhale and gently bring your legs back into the middle and either hold the knees or curl into a little ball or even go into a happy baby pose if that feels good to you. You might move the legs in the hip socket and just enjoy the greater range of mobility, given the work that we've done today. And as that feels good, as you feel done with that, slowly release your legs, bring them out onto the mat, and lay yourself out for Shavasana. You may notice that the thighs rest down into the floor a little easier than usual. Let your buttocks be heavy on the floor. And your low spine will float lightly off the floor. No need to flatten the back. Soften your arms and your hands. Even open up your throat so your breath can flow. And with your next exhale, imagine just floating downwards, really settling down, down into the support of the earth, the mat beneath you, and into the flow of life, to the pulsation of the breath, the pulsation of your heartbeat, the pulsation of life force in your body. Let that just flow through you as you rest now for Shavasana.
Let the breath blow through you like a ripple over a lake. Then softly move your fingers, move your toes. Awaken the body by stretching and moving, however feels good to you. Now bend your knees. Roll over onto your right side and pause there. Then press down into your hands and come back up to seated. And again, close your eyes so that you can return to the deeper place inside. Connect with that deeper essence that is unchanging. And by connecting with that, may we build the strength to be adaptable to whatever else what life may bring. So we don't get stuck, we don't get caught, we don't get mired in our own resistance, but we're able to go with the flow, we're able to move and respond with consciousness, with attention, with kindness. Bring your palms up in front of your heart, and from the deep place, the deep essence within, we'll offer an Om. Welcome a full breath. Om. Namaste. All right, thanks everybody for joining in practice today. Always good to be with you.